From Death to Legacy: How Dostoyevsky's Brush with Death Shaped World Literature. Have you ever imagined what it feels like to hear the click of rifle bolts, certain that your final breath is mere seconds away? Picture a chill December morning in 1849, where a young Russian writer stands blindfolded in front of a firing squad. His heart pounds like thunder in his chest. Around him, the snow crunches beneath anxious footsteps, and the sharp winter wind cuts across his face. For Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoyevsky, this is not a nightmare. It is a very real moment when life and death are separated by a razor-thin line. But in a dramatic twist worthy of a grand Russian novel, a messenger arrives at the last possible instant, carrying a pardon from Tsar Nicholas I. This day, December 22, 1849, will forever change Dostoyevsky's life and ultimately shape world literature. To fully grasp the magnitude of what happens on that fateful December morning, we must step back in time a few months earlier. Dostoyevsky, then only 27 years old, had been arrested alongside several members of the so-called Petrashevsky Circle. This was a group of intellectuals who discussed utopian socialism, philosophy, and political reforms, hot-button topics in mid-19th century Russia. The Petrashevsky Circle had read and discussed works banned by the Tsarist regime, from the teachings of French socialists to radical philosophies. Although they did not incite violent rebellion, the authorities saw them as a seed from which dangerous ideas might sprout. Once implicated, Dostoyevsky and his associates were imprisoned at the Peter and Paul Fortress in St. Petersburg. The Tsar's decree came quickly. They were sentenced to death by firing squad. No leniency, no second chances. It was the ultimate punishment, intended to suppress any whisper of dissent. Imagine the sun only halfway above the horizon on December 22, 1849, throwing pale light across the courtyard. The atmosphere is tense and almost surreal. Dostoyevsky, along with several co-accused, is led out to the open square in two groups. Blindfolds are handed out, final prayers are murmured. In Dostoyevsky's mind, regrets, confusions, and flashes of memories battle for space. He later recalled observing the cathedral's golden spire and thinking of how precious every heartbeat was. Soldiers line up, rifles loaded and ready. The wordless dread is palpable, an invisible weight on everyone's chest. Moments before the order is given, the first group is prepared for execution. Some men even believe they hear the rifles cocked. It's as though time slows to a crawl. Fingertips go numb in the frosty air, and each breath becomes an effort. Dostoyevsky is in the next group. There is no doubt in his mind he will be shot. He thinks of the novels he will never write, the insights he will never share, the life he will never live. This torment is excruciating, yet it is also the moment that will define him. Then, in the height of this desperate stillness, a messenger gallops into the courtyard, wielding a decree from Tsar Nicholas I himself. The official proclaims a stay of execution at the 11th hour. One can almost envision the wave of shock, disbelief, and overwhelming relief passing among those condemned. Their sentences, in a dramatic gesture orchestrated by the Tsar, are commuted to prison terms and forced labor in Siberia. To this day, historians debate whether the Tsar meant to teach them a horrific lesson, forcing them to stare death in the face before sparing them. This theatrical demonstration was almost certainly designed to break their spirits and remind them of the state's absolute power. Yet for Dostoyevsky, it did something else. It ignited a profound internal transformation that would echo through his novels for decades to come. Instead of finding himself in a grave, Dostoyevsky soon finds himself in a prison camp in Omsk, Siberia, where the punishing cold is matched only by the brutal conditions of forced labor. Surrounded by hardened criminals and stifling regulations, he contends with sickness, deprivation, and the unrelenting glare of suspicion. But this ordeal also sparks within him a deep empathy for the downtrodden, a theme that will dominate his later works. During those years in Siberia, Dostoyevsky experiences what he calls a spiritual rebirth. Once a man of progressive ideas and free thought, he now grapples intimately with moral struggles, faith, and redemption. The boundaries between sin and virtue, redemption and suffering, become more than just philosophical abstractions. They become the very fabric of his daily existence. This shift in perspective shapes every sentence he will later write. After 4 torturous years of forced labor and subsequent service in the military, Dostoyevsky is finally allowed to return to the realm of letters. It is now the mid-1850s, and the Russia he returns to is in flux, inching, though sometimes grudgingly, towards some reforms. Having been tempered by near death, exile, and introspection, Dostoyevsky emerges not as a broken man, but as a writer whose pen drips with passion, realism, and the complexities of the human soul. He pours his experiences into novels and stories that delve into the darkest corners of the human condition. From the philosophical struggles of Notes from the Underground to the intense moral dilemmas of Crime and Punishment, Dostoyevsky's works reflect the torment and redemption he lived through. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin, the novel's protagonist, embodies a certain spiritual purity, an echo, perhaps, of Dostoyevsky's new religious convictions forged in Siberia. By the time he writes The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoyevsky has become a towering figure in Russian literature, weaving extraordinary depth into his exploration of ethics, free will, and faith. Now you might wonder how one man's brush with death, followed by exile, could possibly reshape the trajectory of human thought. The answer lies in Dostoyevsky's vivid examination of moral, psychological, and existential questions that remain pressing in every era. His work did not merely entertain, it propelled entire generations of writers, philosophers, and psychologists to reconsider the essence of the human experience. Take existential philosophy, for instance. Major thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche and Jean-Paul Sartre found rich fuel in Dostoyevsky's portrayal of despair, anxiety, and moral anguish. Meanwhile, Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, was profoundly influenced by Dostoyevsky's deep dive into the psyche. Freud once remarked that Dostoyevsky's handling of parricide and complex family dynamics in The Brothers Karamazov was a reflection of universal human conflicts. This synergy of literature and psychological insight spurred discussions that remain relevant in therapy, ethics, and criminology to this day. But let's not forget the conditions that led to Dostoyevsky's sentencing. Mid-19th century Russia was a land of stark contrasts: opulent aristocracy versus oppressed serfs, rigid censorship versus bursts of intellectual fervor. In such a society, fresh ideas often carried the weight of treason. Dostoyevsky's near execution underscores just how fragile intellectual freedom can be under autocratic systems. Here was a young writer whose only real crime was engaging with politically sensitive materials. This cautionary episode reminds us that progress and innovation flourish only when free speech and open dialogue are protected. Historically, we see that out of the darkest chapters of repression and injustice, towering works of literature often emerge. In this sense, Dostoyevsky's survival and the transformative effect it had on him had an undeniable, uplifting consequence for humanity. Each of his novels acts as a lens, inviting readers to grapple with their own moral compasses, prejudices, and empathies. We are, in effect, forced to confront the very questions that keep us awake at night. Who are we at our core? Can we be redeemed after committing the gravest sins? What does suffering teach us about compassion and faith? When Dostoyevsky was spared from the firing squad on that December day, an entire legacy was saved with him. Generations of readers worldwide have connected with his haunting depictions of the human condition. Whether it is a college student picking up Crime and Punishment for the first time, or a seasoned scholar dissecting the philosophical dialogues in The Brothers Karamazov, there is something universally resonant in his pages. Furthermore, Dostoyevsky's influence transcends literature alone. In the fields of political science and law, his characters' moral battles echo in modern debates over justice and punishment. In religion and theology, his questions about faith, doubt, and redemption continue to spark reflection. In psychology, his unflinching portrayal of guilt, shame, and desire remains a blueprint for understanding the complexity of human motivations. Had the Tsar's pardon arrived just moments too late, the world would never have known these profound investigations of conscience, sin, and love. How, then, does this dramatic moment in 1849 contribute to the onward march of humanity? The answer is twofold. First, by surviving, Dostoyevsky was able to create novels that captured the extreme edges of human behavior, urging society to look inwards and grapple with profound questions of existence. His works served as a mirror in which humanity could see its own reflection, at times beautiful, at times horrifying, but always thought-provoking. His insights spread far beyond Russia's borders, inspiring reformers, pacifists, writers, and philosophers across continents. Second, the event itself highlighted the power of ideas in shaping or threatening the status quo. By sentencing Dostoyevsky to death, then abruptly sparing him, Tsar Nicholas I inadvertently showcased the lengths to which authoritarian regimes will go to maintain control, yet also the fragility of absolute power in the face of enduring cultural legacy. This cautionary tale resonates even today. Throughout the world, whenever freedom of thought and expression is under threat, the memory of Dostoyevsky's brush with death serves as a rallying cry. It demonstrates that even near certain doom can't quash the human spirit's yearning for truth and creative expression. Because of this interplay, Dostoyevsky's survival did not just transform him, it nudged humanity forward by gifting us with literature that challenges, provokes, and compels us to become more introspective, empathetic, and humane. That terrifying moment on December 22, 1849, when Dostoyevsky felt the chill of death clutch at his heart, stands as a monumental turning point. With the echo of rifle barrels still ringing in his ears, he emerged from the ordeal reborn, carrying with him a vision of humanity so deeply textured that we continue to explore it centuries later. The writer who nearly died before his masterpiece had even begun became one of the greatest voices not just of Russia, but of the entire world. If you want to dive deeper into how Dostoyevsky's narrow escape shaped the revolutionary currents of Russian literature, or if you're curious about the incredible influences his work had on modern philosophy, psychology, and spiritual thought, be sure to check the links in the description and the first pinned comment. There, you'll find recommended books that uncover the full story of that life-altering event and offer more insights into Dostoyevsky's influential legacy. The drama of that December morning reminds us that sometimes, when faced with the brink of oblivion, the human spirit can return stronger and leave a profound impact on the world. Don't miss the additional resources we've provided. Those pages might just open your eyes to new perspectives on life, faith, and redemption. After all, the line between darkness and light can be as thin as a single messenger's arrival, and as powerful as one man's second chance at life.